the return to Salt Lake power. Got the power up now. And as we head into the top 8, he's got to be feeling confident, right? After you've had 2 bad finishes, and recovering from that as a competitor is, you know, the mark of some of the best. I think that every player, no matter how long you've been playing, no matter how many wins you already have under your belt, we all hit those streaks of just bad losses, maybe just bad deck choices. You had a bad read on the metagame, or the deck you chose was good, but all of the other matchups you were hoping to hit just got cannibalized by other competitors. It can really go either way, Chip, and with so many players in the room, so many strong competitors, especially when you're new to the age division, is you know, a lot of pressure to perform and sort of keep up that performance and getting those wins, because you get a little bit of audience pressure almost, right? The viewers at home are rooting for you. You see the messages on social media. You want to make these people proud. But I think at the end of the day, our most seasoned of competitors are doing it really for, you know, just themselves almost.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone kind of bearing with us for a moment, just working through a couple of technical issues, the joy of live events, but tournament integrity is of the utmost importance. We want to make sure that there's absolutely no chance that any player could hear one of us speaking, one of the audience members speaking, because we've got a crowd out there crowded around ready to watch this top 8. I know everyone at home as well is excited to get into things, and if you're looking forward to this match, you know, we've seen our top 8 bracket. We'd love to hear from you on social media. There's plenty of ways to interact with us on various different platforms. You can, of course, use that hashtag #PlayPokemon. Let us know who you're rooting for, what deck you want to see take down this tournament here in Salt Lake.
I mean, and if you're playing to the odds, just say Reggie, and you'll be partially right most of the time. I like the Goodra idea. I mean, you've been talking it up a lot, Chip, that Goodra can just kind of farm these Reggies, get in through the top 8, and whenever we set up something like that, right? Oh, this matchup is bad, this matchup's one-sided, the players always surprise us. So when it comes to being a caster, no matter what happens, I'm going to have a great time here.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is going to be a little tough for the Reggies at this point. I mean, Azul and Grant hit each other, so that's a mirror. One of them's automatically eliminated. One of them will move on. Hale is going to be playing up against Drew Kennett. It's a pretty good matchup for Hale. So on paper, Hale should win it. Now, of course, not necessarily. Things can always change. So it's going to be an interesting path without a doubt. But it looks like we are finally ready. Things have gotten resolved. We're getting into our top 8. Caleb Rogerson, as a senior, had an absolutely insane results throughout the 2022 season. EUIC champion, SLC regional champion, but once again, his first year as a master. Would love to make a statement win this weekend. And his deck of choice for this tournament, that Origin form Palkia V-Star.
Yeah, Origin form Palkia doing what it needs to do. One of the classic decks, very strong, very storied, and if you've been putting the reps in on it this whole time, then you should be good to go.
A great deck choice. Many players have identified Origin form Palkia V-Star as the best deck in the format, so Caleb choosing to go with what many players considered to be the #1 choice. Nick Moffitt here on the other side of the table had a top 8 in Baltimore just about a month ago. Of course, that top 4 finish in Salt Lake City last season, just like we mentioned, an additional top 16. He was actually playing Reggie Gigas in that top 16 finish at the Milwaukee Regional Championships, and then a little bit older of an accomplishment, 2018 top 16 in Philadelphia.
All right, so yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of strong showings, and now we just want this regional champion spot to top off this resume. The Giratina V-Star with the rest of the Lost homies in the deck. Going to try to fill up that Lost Zone, get that Star Requiem down. Just a bit of a clarification for the audience as well. This round is still going to be 60 minutes. So they do need to keep that in mind when it comes to pace of play. Yeah,
it's a little interesting. There is always extra time added for single elimination, but it is, I believe, to the TO's discretion. So a lot of times we see 75 minutes for Top Cut, but the way things are going to be working for this tournament is that we'll have quarterfinals, semifinals being 60 minutes, and then the finals match will be 75.
And the players are totally fine with this, of course. We've had a
you
lot
just
of
have
ties.
To adapt, right?
We've had a lot of ties, a lot of time extensions over the course of the weekend, and I don't see why they wouldn't be able to just conclude this match within 60. And once you're warmed up, right, you're coming right out of the Swiss rounds into the top 8. These players are already, you know, they got the reps in. They know what they need to do for this matchup. They know what their deck wants to do, and we're just going to see them going through the paces here, here in the opening turns.
I think Caleb had a couple of mulligans to start this game off, which means he did not have a basic Pokemon in his opening hand. So Nick is going to have the benefit of a few added cards to get this game going. More chances to find the ever valuable Battle VIP pass on turn number 1.
Yep, and when it comes to the mulligans, I think I see a lot more of them on the desk. It might just be bias, but Palkia V-Stars, 2 of them in the prize is going to be pretty rough.
That's
2 Colress's
unfortunate.
experiments.
That's not great either.
Oh, no. Bad. 2 players with really bad prizes going to have a hard time getting up out of the start of their game, getting their foundation set up. The Colress is so important, not just for filling up the Lost Zone, but for seeing those important cards out of the deck.
Yeah, the double V-Star prize for Caleb is really, really rough. The thankful thing for him is that it can maybe take Nicholas a little bit of time to get to that point where you're one-hit KOing an Origin Form Palkia V-Star, but it's something Caleb's going to have to consider. We may have to see him work in a Hydro Break at some point, attacking with the Origin Form Palkia V. Otherwise, it's going to be a little awkward without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, these Palkia decks, they have experimented all back and forth about having backup attackers and different ways to approach the game if that V-Star ends up in the prizes or they are very slow to get set up. In this list, you know, we've got Shady Dealings and Teleon for Aqua Bullet to maybe pivot to as well.
Looks like we're getting things started the best way you can get it started in the Pokemon TCG, a turn 1 battle VIP pass. Nicholas really reaping the benefits of those additional cards awarded to him for Caleb mulliganing several times before the game had even started. I think he's even got a second copy waiting in the hand. Gonna take some time here to check the prize cards though. We see him pulling all his Pokemon to the front, all his energies to the back, making sure he can make exact count of what he has available to him.
Yeah, and with the Battle VIP pass, not only does this help you count, this helps you figure out exactly what you're going to grab, be a bit more efficient. Nicholas also, of course, now very much aware of the 2 Colress's experiment and the prizes, and so is going to start sculpting the line around very heavy use of the Comfy to make up for that lack of the easy way to just put cards in the Lost Zone. Once we get 2 Comfies in play with the Flower Selecting, we're going to be seeing lots of scoop-up nets, escape ropes to switch them in and out of the active and back into the hand to get a ton of the Flower Selectings through, get 4 cards in the Lost Zone, start setting up for Cramorant.
First Battle VIP pass can grab the Giratina V and the Radiant Greninja, which is an excellent card in this deck. It allows you to get just a little bit of extra consistency with that concealed cards, but it can also become an excellent attacking threat with its Moonlight Shuriken attack. You can, of course, utilize it, and it's easy to power up with Mirage Gate that this deck wants to utilize. So if Caleb is unable to find his Manaphy quickly, that's something Nicholas could try to take advantage of.
Yeah, well, a good distribution of energy in this deck, and because Nicholas has the Comfies available, has the Radiant Greninja, can also start making those sometimes hard choices about, do I want to send this energy to the Lost Zone? Do I want to add it to my hand? And now we might see a higher prioritization of the water energies to keep the threat level up with this Radiant Greninja.
Concealed cards before the second Battle VIP pass. I think Nick's just wanting to check out exactly what he draws into before committing to something with the VIP pass.
Yeah, if you draw into the Comfies, then the VIPs can find something else.
Looks like the Flower Selecting saw a Giratina V-Star and a Capture Energy, a very nice card in this deck because so many of your attackers have a colorless energy cost, and it's just a way to get an extra Pokemon into play whenever Battle VIP pass fails you.
Yep, and so we see the Scoop Up Net gets the second Comfy into the active, another Flower Selecting, so many cards in the hand, so many cards available to be seen so far, rebench of the other Comfy.
Yeah, that second Comfy coming back down. If there's another switching card, like another Scoop Up Net, we're just seeing so many Flower Selectings turn after turn after turn.
And sometimes players, you know, slow down on this a little bit. They don't want to use all of their switching cards and resources like this super early on, maybe just to get a Cramorant set up. But because Nicholas is aware that they're down a couple of Colress's experiments in the prize cards, the heavy use of the Comfy makes a lot of sense here. Cramorant being sent to the Lost Zone as well.
A really tough choice off that that last flower, selecting a Cramorant and a Mirage Gate. Now, Mirage Gate is one of the most powerful cards in this entire deck. Once you get to 7 cards in the Lost Zone, it allows you to fetch 2 energy of different types and put them out of your deck and put them onto your Pokemon in any way that you like. So Nicholas choosing to hang on to that does lose the Cramorant, though, which can be such a strong early game attacker into Pokemon like Sobble and Galarian Zigzagoon, which is what Caleb has started.
Yeah, hopefully we can find that second Cramorant, another hard choice. Hopefully won't present itself where both of them end up in the Lost Zone somehow. There are a couple Ordinary Rods as well to recover that Cramorant, get that cheeky 110 damage in with the Spit Innocently attack. Whenever you want to soften up an opponent's Pokemon, set up for that KO down the road. And after the Capture Energy attachment, we got the other Battle VIP pass now to get that final Comfey. And now we can go for the Retreat chip, get another Flower Selecting. That'll be 4 cards in the Lost Zone. No Cramorant just yet from what I'm seeing.
I mean, this is just an excellent, excellent start from Nicholas. He's able to get so many cards in the Lost Zone. He's increased his hand size so much. 2 Giratinas into play. He's not getting an energy attachment onto Giratina, but it's really not that big of a deal. All he wants to do is build to the potential of a Mirage Gate play in the future.
Yeah, without the early attachment, the Mirage Gate is going to make up for that in spades. Nicholas over halfway there, and is just going to finally pass over the turn to Caleb, starting with Galarian Zigzagoon in the active. Can you meet this massive start with one of your own?
There is the Sobble. And, oh, is there a supporter in hand? I don't think I even see an Irida. No Battle VIP pass. I mean, this is not looking great. Zigzagoon pinging 1 damage, and it's just going to be a keep calling. No Origin Form Palkia V, no VIP pass, not even a Quick Ball to aid Caleb Rogerson in this spot.
Wow. When you see the starts that Palkia is, like, capable of, in a spot like this is certainly one of the weaker openings, Chip. And the Sobble can be fine in a lot of matchups, especially when you're anticipating things to go a little bit slower. But with all of these Sobbles now in play, the Giratina, almost online with 4 cards in the Lost Zone, things are going to get pretty dicey. Nicholas Moffitt rocking the 1 copy of Sableye, and if Caleb cannot accelerate the build up of the foundation for this Palkia list, Lost Mine suddenly comes through and starts to knock out these Sobbles and get the free prizes.
Yeah, Caleb's list is maybe a little bit more greedy when it comes to the count of basic Pokemon. He is only playing 3 copies of Sobble in his deck this weekend, so Keep Calling is not going to be as strong as it potentially could be, and if Nick Moffitt can find that other Cramorant and get a free attack off this turn, take a Sobble out of play, that's only going to be 2 Sobbles, 2 Shady Dealings, and Tellians or Drizziles that Caleb will have access to.
Lumineon is the pick, though. Finds the Colress's Experiment. If we can get another Scoop Up Net, we can open up 1 more bench slot for the Cramorant. We'll see if Nicholas even really wants to take down this Sobble. After you see your opponent just do the attach and keep calling, maybe understanding that the hand really isn't too threatening. And it just depends if Nicholas wants to spend another slower turn just setting up, sending cards to the Lost Zone, or maybe trying to convert this immediately into a more aggressive position.
Yeah, we could even see something interesting like an Aqua Return on the Lumineon V this turn. It deals 120 damage, shuffles itself back into the deck. Nick is now at that magic 7 number. We're going to see some Mirage Gates come down. Look at this. This is turn 2, and Nicholas has like 15 cards in his hand.
Amazing, the Mirage Gate. And look at this, setting up on the Radiant Greninja like you talked about, Chip.
Yeah,
the
no
Moonlit
Mana Fee.
Shuriken. Oh my God, the Moonlight Shuriken, so strong. You discard just 2 of the energies. They go right back to the discard pile. 90 damage to 2 Pokemon. These 2 Sobbles on the bench could get knocked out very easily. You take out the one in the active, get rid of that energy as well, and then 1 Sobble on the bench.
Yeah, potentially. You could also just target down the 2 Sobbles, force Caleb maybe to retreat the energy off if he wants to make any sort of plays. You can play around any potential Melanie-type shenanigans, not just giving him the energy in the discard pile for free, force him to retreat. So we'll see what route Nick goes for. But one thing is for certain, he is in a good spot here.
Yeah, the Mirage Gates were found way earlier. We saw the hard choice to keep the Mirage Gate over sending the Cramorant to the Lost Zone, if I recall.
Hanging on to it. There's the second copy being played this turn. Spreading the energy around. 1 energy did go to the Comfey in the active spot, so he needs a way to retreat, it seems. Did not have the energy card in hand to make that happen.
And after we retreat this Comfey, we need to find 1 more energy to attach to the Radiant Greninja to fully power up that Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah, has the energy in hand, did not have the switching card in hand, so has to commit the energy from the Mirage Gate and then, of course, attach for turn to the Greninja. Looks like Capture Energy could be the choice. There is also the basic Water as an option, which is the choice, actually.
Okay, so it looks like it was all set up thanks to the Mirage Gate. Having so much energy acceleration gives you that level of flexibility. 2 prizes to Nicholas Moffitt on turn 2. A massive showing here. Lost Zone at 7, and now Sableye becomes the next threat that could bury Caleb from getting completely established in this game at all.
Yeah, targeting down Drizzile next turn would be very, very strong for Nick Moffitt. We'll see exactly how things line up. Caleb is finally able to get at least something going. Shady Dealings, Drizzile able to get Quick Ball, which finds the Origin Form Palkia V, and he's just going to be using this Melanie and crossing his fingers that these 3 cards are the best 3 cards in his deck.
Couple Drizziles, a cross switcher.
Yeah, that's
the
not
Inteleon,
it.
that's not it. Just passes back over to Nicholas. Nothing to do. Galarian is going to offer up one more prize. Nicholas has 2 Comphase in play still. Can maybe set up this Radiant Greninja for another Moonlight Shuriken. Get another couple prizes here.
That concealed cards ability being used, sending that capture energy to the discard pile. Of course, you can use concealed cards with special energy and basic energy. This escape rope is an interesting call for Caleb.
Yeah, just trying to threaten, figuring out if you bring up this Origin Form Palkia, am I going to just threaten you with the Requiem? So you see Caleb has to offer up this Drizzile instead.
Sending up the Drizzile for now. Nick now going into the Giratina V. We could see the V-Star come into play. We also could just see the basic Giratina V attacking with its Shred attack. It deals 160 damage, which is enough to deal with Drizzile, and it does not require you to Lost Zone any energy cards like the V-Star does.
Another Mirage Gate facilitating this massive swing chip. You can see the tempo. As soon as the Lost Zone is filled up, this deck absolutely explodes. One more Mirage Gate left in the deck, but now we've got Giratina V ready to go. Evolving into the V-Star, has the boss's orders to set up the Requiem, and that's going to be everything for Caleb. Just going to concede there.
Yeah, Caleb said, I've seen enough. Let's get to game number 2. I need a quick reset. That game was not going to go Caleb Rogerson's way, but that was just an excellent display from Nick Moffitt about what he wants to do with his deck, how he wants to set up, how he wants to get things going, and he gets off to a quick 1-0 lead.
Yeah, the Palkia list, we can see it's really night and day. Sometimes you miss out on the Battle VIP pass and still fight back, especially with that Keep Calling. But this particular deck, not having the max run of Sobbles, means that when you are behind, you're even further behind. That was just really the Battle VIP pass difference. And, you know, shuffling the cards and going again, we can just hopefully see a complete 180 from that sort of start coming from Caleb. We've seen the powerful starts time and time again from the Origin Form Palkia, just with the Battle VIP Pass, getting the Radiant Greninja, the Origin Form Palkia V, couple Sobbles, and then you're just off to the races. Maybe start hunting down those Comphase and whatnot before they have a chance to fill up the Lost Zone.
6 prizes going out for each player. A couple of basic Pokemon for Caleb, a little awkward to deal with. He does have the Hisuian Heavy Ball, so he can fetch one of these things out potentially. This game is already starting much better for Caleb Rogerson, though, as he has opened up with a Battle VIP Pass.
Beautiful start. Sobble in the active Battle VIP Pass coming through. Caleb already going to be aware that the Radiant Greninja is gone, but that's fine. You're already thinking, okay, I can do Irida, Heavy Ball, get the Radiant Greninja out. We've seen time and time again, some players, they get off to such a strong start, they end up not even needing the Greninja.
Yeah, Greninja can be a really solid attacker in this matchup as well, so that's something Caleb needs to keep in the back of his mind, just like we saw Nicholas Moffitt really take advantage of the Moonlight Shuriken, targeting down Caleb's draw power. Caleb can do the same thing, theoretically, in this matchup, targeting down a bunch of Comphys.
Yeah, the Comphys put in a lot of work to make up for the lack of Colress's experiment. And if Caleb is able to get out ahead and, you know, snipe down these Comphys and force Nicholas to just naturally draw into Colress's experiment, it's going to slow down that Lost Zone generation so much.
Yeah, pretty decent turn for Caleb. He's got the bare minimum of what he wanted, a couple Sobbles and a Palkia with an energy card, so enough to work with, the bare minimum. Definitely way better than Sobble Keep Calling, what we saw in game number 1. Nick, on the other hand...
Ooh, tough call. I saw a scoop up net. What was the other? An ordinary rod being sent to the lost zone. I think the scoop up net certainly is much more appropriate from this position, has the second Comfey to promote the other after the scoop up.
Really looking for that Colress's experiment here to get things rolling. We see 2 Psychic Energy. Yeah, real tough call here, Nick. Which one is it going to be? Yep, we'll take Psychic Energy. Big surprise.
A little bluff play there. Just saying, oh, yeah, this is definitely a hard choice,
right.
And then send the energy to the lost zone. Another scoop up net, Comfey number 3 with the capture energy to find another basic Pokemon out of the deck. Do you want to get Comfey number 3 or Cramorant here, do you think?
I feel like Cramorant seems really solid, though. It has to come along with Nick being able to get enough cards in the Lost Zone to utilize it. This active Comfey can use Flower Selecting and send one more card if he's got maybe a switching card, or if he can retreat into the other Cramorant and then, or the other Comfey and then find another switching card. He could get there without ever having to utilize the Colress's experiment on this opening turn. We'll see what he grabs off capture, though.
Yeah,
could definitely go with that third Comfey if he wants.
With 2 scoop up net down, having that final switch is a bit rough. There were, what was it, 2 escape rope in the prizes? Just 1. And a scoop up net there.
Yeah, so that's a few of his switch cards down for the count. He also could get Radiant Greninja. I think he did have a couple energy cards in his hand, so that is an option as well to see a couple of more cards before he uses this third Flower Selecting for the turn. After
you've kind of taken game 1 by getting off to a great start, sometimes it can kind of muddy your perception of the matchup. And when you're off to a more balanced approach to the start of the game, choosing which road to go down on how you want to go about establishing your foundation and filling up the lost zone does become a bit of an issue here, Chip, because the Cramorant wasn't really ever part of game 1 whatsoever. And if you have to make the choice to rely on it, you might second guess yourself. Do I actually need the Cramorant after all?
It is going to be the Radiant Greninja. Like we mentioned, Nick does have a couple energy cards, so concealed cards gives him a couple more ways to find maybe Battle VIP Pass, a Quick Ball to get the Lumineon for Colress, or just finding the Colress without ever having to use the Lumineon. That would definitely be the ideal outcome.
Yeah, we love it when the players just have the Lumineon for boss's orders or something like that to close out the game.
Right.
And now just taking some notes here. Still 44 minutes left in the round. Plenty of time for Nicholas to close out this game 2, or maybe even pilot through a game 3 if it does come to that. Radiant Greninja now going to discard this Psychic Energy to draw 2 more cards.
A V-Star and a Switch. So that is helpful. I think that Nick has a decent shot of getting out the Cramorant. He just needs a way to find the Cramorant now. He can retreat into this Comfey. He's got Switch, so he's looking for just a Battle VIP Pass or a Quick Ball. Ooh, and I don't think I see it.
Yeah, has the Ordinary Rod. Has to make the decision to keep this one. That's a Water Energy going to the Lost Zone. A little bit less threat available from the Radiant Greninja, but now that's 4 cards in the Lost Zone. Nicholas already committed to grabbing the Radiant Greninja to draw. Doesn't have the Cramorant this turn.
Has 1 more Comfey and that Switch in hand, so he could use Flower Selecting once more.
One more Flower Selection. Battle VIP Pass, so we can find the Cramorant here, but can we get this final Comfey out of the active?
But I think Nick is maybe debating, can he Lost Zone this second Grass Energy? There's already a Grass Energy in the Lost Zone. That is the other option here, and he does only play 3 Grass Energy in this list.
Oh yeah, 3 Grass Energy. There's already 1 Psychic Energy in the Lost Zone as well. Very tough choice here.
And he does ditch the Grass Energy, meaning he will only have 1 single grass to work with, so he's going to have to be extremely mindful of that. He is also down an Ordinary Rod, so his resources are running very thin already on turn 1.
Striking that balance between filling up the Lost Zone quickly, but actually having the ability to convert that threat into a win is something that these Lost Zone pilots have to consider every single game. Sometimes the choices are easy, sometimes the choices are very difficult, and sometimes, you know, the repercussions of a choice don't present themselves until way later. Nicholas Moffitt with the pass has a good bench foundation, 5 cards in the Lost Zone, the threat of Mirage Gate next turn.
That's a pretty wild turn from Nick Moffitt, especially considering that he didn't even play a Colress.
That is true, that is true. Fortunately, the Cramorant did not come through, so Caleb is able to keep this Sobble alive. Puts the Drizzile down now to Shady Dealings and look for a card here. got the Origin form Palkia V with the energy attachment turn 1, so now can start threatening subspace swell. Gets the evolution incense off of the Drizzile to get the V-Star down, and a scoop up net to promote this into the active. So we're going to see a knockout here soon, Chip.
And I think we have a Marnie incoming as well, which is a great response to how large Nicholas's hand size is. This is going to really limit Nick's options, and Caleb maybe doesn't know it, but Nick actually has 2 Mirage Gates in the hand.
Beautiful. And look at this. The second Drizzile eyeballing this Hisuian Heavy Ball to get the Radiant Greninja out of the prizes, get a little bit more card draw up and running. We still have to put some water energy in the discard pile as well. So this is going to be huge.
Yeah, Greninja could be an excellent attack option at some point in this game as well. Nick does not play the Manaphy in the list. Most of these Giratina decks do not choose to go with that card. So Radiant Greninja could be a choice, but Caleb is actually going to value the Origin form Palkia V. Wants to ensure that he has a backup one since Nick is very likely threatening a V-Star attack next turn.
Yeah, that Star Requiem taking out your attacker would absolutely take all the wind out of Caleb's sails. Just reestablishing the prize cards here. 2 water energies in the prizes as well, so you have to be very specific about when you attack and how you're able to fill up that discard pile to set up for your Melanies and etc.
Marnie incoming, Caleb getting 5 cards. Nick just wants to study the hand, make sure he knows
what's
exactly
on the bottom,
what is going to the bottom. So, I mean, really smart of Nick to take advantage of the moment and really try to capitalize, make sure he has access to all available information.
Yeah, there's 2 Mirage Gates now on the bottom of the deck, 2 more left somewhere in the deck. It would be a shame to fill up the Lost Zone and not have your payoff come through. And we've seen it, especially with the Giga Stack, to complete your board setup and then not have the energies in the discard pile to get your payoff. And that is what Caleb is banking on here with this Marnie.
Ooh.
Also has the double cross switcher.
Okay, and the scoop up net to pick up the Manaphy and take out a Giratina, a turn 2 prize KO for Caleb Rogerson, jumping out to an early lead.
Amazing. And I love that Caleb focused on getting the double Origin form Palkia, right? Is rewarded by getting that Radiant Greninja off the prizes. But now by having this consistent threat, this is what you want to do. You want to swing, swing, swing. Use the brute force and acceleration that Origin form Palkia V-Star has available to it. Over on Nicholas Moffitt's side, going for the Colress's Experiment. This is going to fill up 7 cards into the Lost Zone to turn on the Mirage Gate. We still have to find one of the remaining copies from the middle of the deck.
This is a really tough call, though. He's found one of each energy type and the air balloon that he would love to use to retreat this Comfey this turn. So,
and you've got to keep this grass energy.
Yeah, grass energy is the #1. Let's hang on to this. I think the water energy is what he's debating losing here.
Yeah, now the Manaphy's in play. The Moonlight Shuriken isn't looking as attractive.
Yes.
Go ahead and get rid of that.
But now it's got to be a question of, even though Nick has activated the Mirage Gate, how many energy cards are even available in his deck to accelerate? I think he's got 5 in the Lost Zone. There's 2 in the discard pile and 1 in the hand as well, I believe. And then this flower selecting is so awkward too, because you see Boss's Orders, which is a very important card for the late game, and Chorus's Experiment, which is so important. You can see how these Lost Zone engine decks really do have to make so many tough decisions through the course of a game.
Yeah, ditches the Boss's Orders, keeps the Colress's Experiment. I think this means that Nicholas is going to start leaning on this Sableye a little bit harder as we head towards the late game. We still have Cramorant online, can start softening up some targets, putting some damage through. So we'll have to see if Cramorant is factored into this plan whatsoever.
With Nick at 8 cards in the Lost Zone, if he wants to get a knockout this turn, it's going to have to be with a Giratina V-Star and a Lost Impact. He's not going to be able to get there through the Star Requiem just yet, unless he can find a way to get a couple more cards down.
I think it's all in on Sableye. I think so many energies have ended up in the Lost Zone. It's hard to say, because like the Lost Impact, that sends, is it 1 or 2
it sends
energies
2
to the
energies
Lost Zone?
to the Lost Zone, yeah.
Oh, and you're already so low on resources. At that point, you just can't attack with anything.
And Nick is even thinking twice about the decision to grab Giratina out of the deck, because it's just so unlikely. It's so difficult to attack with multiple of them here.
Yeah, actually picks up the Oranguru.
And this is a really cool combo of cards. What you can do is you can use Primate Wisdom to put a basic energy from your hand back on top of the deck, so you can then Mirage Gate to pull it out of the deck. So maybe if you end up with a hand with 3 or 4 energy cards in it, that's a way you can kind of get around that issue.
And also, if there's a card in your hand that you just absolutely don't need for this time or the matchup, you can put it on top and then guarantee send it to the Lost Zone with Flower Selecting.
off this flower selecting sees the Colress and a Giratina V-Star, I think, was the other one, which is what he chose to grab.
Ooh, and Colress ends up going to the Lost Zone. After all, with 9 cards in the Lost Zone, it's really not needed anymore.
Yep.
Sableye almost going to be a threat here, but the Manaphy doesn't protect, right? Because of the way that Sableye's attack is worded.
Right, yeah. It's placing damage counters as opposed to dealing damage, which is a little different. It can get a little tricky, but the way this hand has shaped up, and Caleb Rogerson Marnieing those Mirage Gates to the bottom of the deck last turn, I think Nick is potentially missing an attack here. If he does not pull off the attack this turn, that is just a huge opening for Caleb Rogerson to really put strangle on this game.
Flower selecting, has that grass energy back in the hand.
Yeah,
has to be very precious with this.
Use that. Primate Wisdom knew that he had to grab the grass off of this choice, otherwise he will not have the option. Ooh, and this is a really interesting card. The Collapsed Stadium does remove the Comfey from play, and it means Caleb can no longer bench another Pokemon unless he puts another stadium of his own in play.
And so Caleb has the option to keep swinging here, has the Irida, so no boss's orders.
And this can grab Shady Dealings and Tellian, which is going to unlock the second combination of the cross-switcher plays if he wants it.
Ah.
And he does already have one of those pieces in hand, so he can really capitalize here. If he can get the stadium out of play and maybe find like a Choice Belt, the Galarian Zigzagoon, he could take a knockout on this Giratina V-Star on the bench.
And if that was the case, Caleb will pull so far ahead with only 2 prizes remaining. With all of the Pokemon that we see in play, the Sableye just is not going to be able to get there. This version, of course, relying on the Giratina V and the Giratina V-Star, doesn't have the Radiant Charizard as like this extreme comeback mechanic.
So Caleb needs to bump the stadium. He needs to Shady Dealings. So he's getting the Shady Dealings. He's getting the Scoop Up Net because that's a way to retreat. So Shady Dealings, I think, here can grab the Cross Switcher and the Stadium card. He can then use the Cross Switchers, bring up the Tina, and then he'll just need Galarian Zigzagoon and Choice Belt as the last 2 pieces of the combo, which he will have access to 1 more Shady Dealings. So if he has one of those other 2 combo pieces in hand, he can pull this off here.
Yep, and the play is all coming together. At this point, too, in game number 2, you have to fight to take this to game 3 to move on through the top 8. Caleb also has to make sure that this is executed properly, play this out clean, has the second side of the cross switcher, has the stadium now to bump the Collapsed Stadium, Scoop Up Net to pull up. Oh, actually just benches the Radiant Greninja. Going to go for the concealed cards. Yeah,
see what you get here because you have to use the Scoop Up Net at some point, and he does find the Quick Ball. So I think this play is potentially available to Caleb. If he wants it, he can use the cross switchers, bring up the Tina, and then use the Scoop Up Net, pick up the Inteleon, use the Drizzile, Shady Dealings for the Choice Belt, Quick Ball for the Zigzagoon, and that would be a knockout. The problem with that play, though, is that it only leaves 1 out to Shady Dealings next turn in play. There's no additional Sobbles, and he could only potentially utilize the Shady Dealings Inteleon. It looks like he is going to go for it, though.
And it's all coming together.
Yes.
Has the Choice Belt off the Shady Dealings, the Galarian Zigzagoon with the Quick Ball.
Yep.
Just has to figure out what to discard, and now this is all coming together. Nicholas Moffitt going to go down 2 more prizes, and the Giratina V-Star going to leave the table. So now no threat of a Star Requiem to get a revenge KO. And now suddenly the game is on the shoulders of Sableye.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really difficult for Nick Moffitt. He is down so many resources, and he hasn't even attacked yet, which is pretty wild to say that he can be down so many resources. And this is a big KO. The 270 HP remaining on the Giratina after that Zigzagoon ping, and Nick Moffitt says, I can't come back from that. Caleb Rogerson ties the matchup 1-1.
Beautiful. For every awkward start we see Origin Form Palkia V-Star have, there's another game where it gets a solid foundation and then gets the Shady Dealings chain to put together absolutely monstrous combination of cards like that to close out games.
The fact that Caleb played Marnie and got 2 cross switchers off of the Marnie in order to take that turn 2 KO was absolutely wild. Exactly what he wanted to see. And if you're Nicholas, you got to kind of just refocus,
Yeah.
reset. Game 1 went so well for you. Game 2, you did a lot. You saw so many cards, and yet somehow still were unable to piece together an attack. That is just something that we've seen happen with these Lost Zone engine decks from time to time.
Yeah, the choices over and over and over again were so difficult and so awkward. Oh, you got to get rid of another energy. You're getting rid of your Mirage Gate, your Coal Rest, your it was just so awkward. You have to make those choices. You're losing those resources, and once more, Nicholas had to make that choice of sometimes if this setup is good enough, losing these resources early won't actually come back around to bite me. But in the way this game went, the setup was just too deep down one line. And you have to, looking into the future like that is impossible. You just have to trust that you're making the correct choice and prove yourself right later on.
A cross switcher in the prizes could be a little awkward for Caleb, but other than that, nothing too terrible here. The Path to the Peak can be nice to turn off your opponent's Radiant Greninja concealed cards at some point in the game. So these are all prizes that Caleb should take pretty early on unless he shuffles them up with a Hisuian Heavy Ball. We'll just have to see how it plays out.
At the very least, Nicholas Moffitt has proven that, you know, he knows the way around this list, has consistently gotten multiple cards in the Lost Zone very early, and 2 games so far now has not employed the Cramorant. And so maybe that will finally come out in this game number 3 to get some early damage and make things a little bit easier to stomach as we head into the mid-game.
Nick Moffitt with a great start already. Not a Battle VIP pass, but the Capture Energy to get another basic Pokemon up and running. Could chain together another Comfey. We do see, I think there was already one in hand, so could even get a Giratina V down and try to get that ready to become a V-Star on the next turn if he wants to as well. Plenty of options. Or Radiant Greninja.
Radiant Greninja is always a solid choice, Chip. And you can see Nicholas being very specific about what cards are in the prizes, what cards are in the deck, because this kind of affects the math on, you know, are you prioritizing a Rangaroo to sort of manipulate your flower selectings a little bit more to avoid those really heartbreaking choices that you have to make sometimes when it comes to sending a card to the Lost Zone.
Nick just going to take a moment here. There is still just under 30 minutes left, so plenty of time remaining in this game for it to complete. Taking a look, making sure he knows exactly what Pokemon are prized, what supporters and energy counts and all of those things. There really wasn't anything too detrimental for him in the prize cards this game. A couple things maybe a little annoying. The Collapse Stadium and the Luminion could be annoying, but all prize cards that he should hopefully take early on.
Yeah, the Mirage Gate being in there isn't that big a deal either because there are 3, and the fact of the matter is Mirage Gate's just a blank card until you get that Lost Zone filled up. So overall, you don't really want to see those until much later regardless. Still a lot of digging. Yeah, a lot of research being done, right?
Yes.
A lot of notes being taken. And this kind of speaks to a point we talked about a little bit earlier in the broadcast, Chip, about how this deck has developed a reputation for being very difficult to pilot, and that's because at the highest levels like this, the players are incredibly meticulous, trying to play towards these vague outs. It's so hard to justify sometimes. Do I keep this energy, or do I send this to the Lost Zone? Will I still be all right if I do it? And even if a choice was correct, if you still lose, it's hard to say that you still made the right choice sometimes.
So the Radiant Greninja was the final grab. There is at least a couple energy cards in hand to utilize. Already a Giratina V, I think, there as well, which is pretty nice.
All right. And then also gets the concealed cards. Thinking about, getting rid of the grass energy, going to keep the water energy in the hand to maintain the threat of the Moonlight Shuriken.
Finding a Psychic and a Cramorant. We haven't seen Nicholas really lean on the Cramorant very much so
not
far
at all
in these games. So we'll see if he wants to consider it as a factor at all or not in this one.
It seems to be such a strong idea, not just for softening up targets, but just presenting a threat very early that your opponent has to take time off of their development in order to answer. And if the Cramorant's in the active, Caleb doesn't have that extra time, right, to get the Sobbles down and do Drizzile things. You have to suddenly pivot to get an attacking threat of your own set up. With Origin Form Palkia V in the active, maybe the Cramorant isn't as attractive because it's more likely that Caleb is able to just get the return knockout, maybe not getting as much value out of it.
So a little bit slower of a start for Nick Moffitt than what we have seen thus far, and Caleb has a pretty decent hand. We see Capacious Bucket. I do believe there was an Irida in the hand as well, which on turn one will almost always grab out that Battle VIP pass as a great option to try to fill the bench up. So plenty of options here for Caleb.
So far, it's been the fact that Nicholas was able to pick up that win in game one by having an explosive start, contrasted with Caleb having a very awkward one. With Caleb is able to once again get a strong foundation, get these threats up, kind of take over the tempo of the game, using the cross switchers and whatnot to snipe down threats before they become fully active. Caleb can certainly run away with this game three, and with 26 minutes has plenty of time to do so.
Yeah, similarly to Nick, checking the prize cards, Caleb wants to take a moment himself and observe exactly what is available. Capacious Bucket, of course, grabbing the 2 waters. There is also another Capacious Bucket in the hand. We'll go with Irida for now, though.
And here we go. Irida gets an item and a Pokemon. So this is going to be Battle VIP Pass. And the Radiant Greninja found the classic setup that we've seen time and time again, Chip.
Very common play from the Origin Form Palkia deck. Turn 1 Irida for Greninja and VIP Pass.
And now just deciding what to get off this Battle VIP Pass. Finds the Sobble again. Caleb Rogerson only on 3 copies of Sobble. Has been relying much more on getting the double Origin Form Palkia V established to have an attacker and also the threat of that backup attacker. I like this resiliency, not going for just the pure utility of the Shady Dealings engine.
The second Capacious Bucket will thin 2 more cards out of the deck. Caleb actually holding on to quite a few basic Pokemon in his hand. He's got the Manaphy, which is a huge card to get down. Otherwise, Nicholas could theoretically threaten a Moonlight Shuriken on the next turn.
Moonlight Shuriken did make its way through in game number 1, but the Manaphy has been able to close off that opportunity here in game 2, and now perhaps in game 3, Radiant Greninja going to draw 2 cards first just to make a big choice here. So many water energies in the hand. Got to get these into the discard pile soon, Chips. We can use that Star Portal. Second Battle VIP Pass also just going to dig through the deck.
Yeah, I don't even know. I guess you can get the 1 Sobble and just the other one that's in your hand. Hold on to it. You can bench it later if something gets KO'd. Seems pretty decent to me. I do think the Manaphy should come down this turn, though.
And that would be the full bench, max power for the subspace swell. Nicholas Moffitt, as we saw, is also playing a list that just wants to fill up the bench a lot to have the repeated threat of the Giratina Vs. From this point, I don't know how much work Nicholas really has to do to keep up with this start from Caleb, right? Only 2 cards in the Lost Zone. The Comfies have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Caleb can still, of course, attach an energy for turn. Will put 1 on the active and might as well go for that Rule the Region. That Path to the Peak is in the prize cards, but this can find the copy of Training Court in Caleb's list.
And once we get the Training Court, we'll have that available to get more water energy whenever we need for a pivot or a bonus attachment.
Caleb's actually going to choose to fail for now. Doesn't want to probably give Nicholas access to the Training Court, which does make a lot of sense, and maybe wants to just hang on to it later as a potential bump for the Collapse Stadium that he knows Nicholas has access to after that game too.
Yeah, very smart. If Collapse Stadium does come through, maybe we just kick one of these Sobbles out. Maybe the Radiant Greninja gets kicked. But Colress's Experiment is a fantastic startup to this turn, Chip.
Very good. Can find another Colress for the next turn, but then the last other choices are pretty tough. We see an Ordinary Rod, a Mirage Gate, Energy, Giratina V-Star.
Oh, very, very tough choices. 2 are going to the Lost Zone. 3 get added into the hand.
As Nicholas is making this decision, we do have a couple of updates we can share with the audience from our other top 8 matches going on in the field right now. James Thiel has beat Caleb Gedimer 2-1, so that is Arceus Flying Pikachu moving on to the top 4. Hale and Drew are tied at 1-1, currently fighting it out in game 3. And then Azul Garcia Griego defeated Grant Manley 2-0 in the Regigigas Mirror.
Unbelievable. The mirror match, you knew that was going to be pretty up in the air, but taking it as a 2-0 is pretty convincing that Azul knows what he's doing. Meanwhile, Nicholas Moffitt knows what he's doing, goes for the concealed cards, gets another flower selecting down, 5 cards now in the Lost Zone, just almost there to turn on this Mirage Gate and convert this Giratina V into a real threat. Scoop up net brings the Comfy back to the hand. The next one from the bench goes into the active. We can flower selecting once more. 6 cards in the Lost Zone. Another pretty weird choice to make. Colress and Giratina has to double check the hand to make sure you're making the right decision. I think there's a Colress already in the hand. Maybe we can kick this other one.
And especially if you feel like you need that second Giratina V available if this one on the bench potentially could go down this turn. Nicholas might need to dig just a little bit more still. Sitting at 6 cards in the Lost Zone, he's benched another Comfy. If he can use this other flower selecting,
there's
which
a switch.
he'll be able to do through the switch, that will get to that magic 7 number.
And Cramorant and Giratina V are now the choice here. Cramorant goes to the Lost Zone. It looks like Giratina V is being very heavily prioritized by Nicholas Moffitt. Now with the Mirage Gates online, these cards are more valuable than ever.
A little awkward here. There are a couple of energy cards in Nicholas's hand. He does have the Guru, but is thinking about just using the Mirage Gate first. He did take note of all of his prize cards, so he should know that he's got one of each available still.
Yep, so here we go. Grass Energy, Psychic Energy. Oh, actually, gonna opt for, I like this, opting for the Water Energy. Maybe gonna try to convert onto this Radiant Greninja, keep it up as a threat. If the Collapse Stadium comes through and Caleb has to make that hard choice to kick the Manaphy, the Moonlight Shuriken becomes a huge fork.
Probably just gonna put both of them on the Tina here, I would imagine. He does have the Psychic Energy in hand, or could be using this as a pivot to retreat the Comfy, actually. Does have the second Mirage Gate to make things happen here as well.
Okay, second Mirage Gate. Yeah, the resources are already there. I like that, Nicholas. Check the notes. Make sure there's enough energy in the deck for these Mirage Gates.
He did have access to the Guru or the Ordinary Rod as ways to put energy back into the deck for the Gates, but you know, because he checked his prizes, he knew that he didn't need to worry about that.
So now we've got 3 energies on the Giratina V and the V-Star in hand, if I'm remembering correctly, Chip.
Yes, it is available, so we can see the Lost Impact come in, putting 2 cards into the Lost Zone, but then dealing 280 damage, more than enough to KO this basic Origin Form Palkia V.
Yeah, jumping out with the first 2 prizes of game number 3 forces Caleb to quickly establish this second Origin Form Palkia V and respond to the Giratina.
Here comes that V-Star. We know this active can just manually retreat, get rid of that water energy, put it to the bench. Nicholas is counting here, wants to make sure how many basic Pokemon can he put down. With the 8 basic Pokemon in play, the 8 Pokemon on each player's benches, Origin Form Palkia V-Star next turn would be hitting for 220 damage. So it makes it really difficult for Caleb Rogerson to ever pull off any sort of play where he could one-hit KO the Giratina this coming turn.
Yeah, trying to limit that damage. This was the first avenue that players kind of explored to counter the Origin Form Palkia V. And even though this Lost Zone deck does fill up the bench a lot, we saw a ton, full bench on both sides, game 1 and game 2. Nicholas has sort of managed to whittle things down with the scoop up nets, just have a couple Comfies in play on the bench. Radiant Greninja and now Giratina V-Star seems a little bit safer.
And just over-attaching this extra energy for turn so that if there was something like a Marnie to come out from Caleb's side of the field, Nicholas would only need 1 more energy to swing together another Lost Impact next turn.
So smart. Lost Impact gets rid of 2 energies, but hopefully those won't be needed in the future. That's 2 more cards in the Lost Zone as well, creeping ever closer to the threat of Sableye, Lost Mine Attack. Back over to Caleb, promoting the Radiant Greninja. We now have plenty of water energy in the discard pile. Going to draw 2 cards with the concealed cards.
Yeah, Greninja being sent up is something I really like a lot here from Caleb. If he can combine a Moonlight Shuriken, target down the 2 Comfies this turn, and play Marnie at the same time, there's a chance that Nick is going to have a really tough call when it comes to knocking out this Greninja. You don't really want to use your Star Requiem V-Star power to just take 1 single prize card, and it feels really bad to Lost Zone 2 energy cards to just take 1 prize card.
So smart by Caleb. We saw Nicholas kind of anticipating a response with that over attachment of the energy, and now Caleb just enjoying the fact that I have such a strong attack attached to a Pokemon only worth 1 prize. Finds a Drizzile for the Marnie too. Looks like the play is coming together, Chip. You always know what these Italian engine players are going to look and try to do.
Caleb would also love to bench Origin Form Palkia V here, but it is in his prize card, so he knows he needs to fetch it out with the Hisuian Heavy Ball. Wants to get a second one in play in order to have a potential response if Nick was ever able to pull off something crazy with a boss's orders.
And so one piece that we are missing here, Chip, I think, is the Palkia V Star. So we can actually activate that Star Portal, turn the Moonlight Shuriken threat on.
Yep, and what do you know, Adam? There it is.
Bada boom, there it is. So now we've got a manual attachment on the Radiant Greninja, so that way we can use the Star Portal to just put 2 energies there, 1 energy onto the Origin Form Palkia V on the bench, keep your threats diversified, even goes for the Marnie right away.
Putting Nicholas down to just 4 single cards, and he has a pretty massive hand. You can see he's studying it there on the right side of the table, now putting it back to the bottom of the deck. 5 cards for Caleb, 4 cards for Nick.
Yeah, absolutely massive hand. All goes to the bottom. You now realize which resources you're not going to have access to because these Lost Zone decks don't really shuffle a lot. They're just drawing directly from the top with the Colress and the Flower Selecting. So once those cards go to the bottom for Marnie, you aren't going to see those for quite some time.
I do think Nicholas was able to draw into the Mirage Gate, so that will be an option. But Caleb flips that V-Star marker, getting 2 energy onto the active Greninja, 1 onto the bench. And I actually like this decision as well. Caleb's going to soften up this Giratina V-Star and also still take a prize on a benched Comfey by putting 90 damage here. It's much easier to deal with this Giratina that otherwise is going to be really hard to KO with Origin Form Palkia, since it's gonna not have that many Pokemon on the bench for you to boost your damage output.
And Nicholas Moffitt responds to that play with a Capture Energy. Looking through the deck now, maybe can find the Sableye, maybe is eyeballing this Giratina V, actually getting another threat down. With these energies potentially going to the discard pile, we do need to somehow get an Ordinary Rod to kind of keep up our threat density here, Chip.
Nicholas is eyeing up the Lumineon, wants to maybe find a boss's orders at some point this turn. He, of course, can't grab it off the Capture Energy because it goes straight to the bench, but now pulling a couple energy to the front of the deck. We know that Mirage Gate is waiting there in the hand.
And thankfully, with the search through the deck of the Capture Energy, we do get a shuffle of the deck. So now those cards that were kind of lost to the bottom through Marnie can hopefully be drawn into with a little bit of luck from Nicholas.
Lumineon V, boss's orders, bringing up that Palkia. This is a really strong play from Nicholas Moffitt's side because the Origin Form Palkia V on the bench does not have an energy. This is going to force Caleb to play a Melanie this turn as his supporter, which means he actually won't be able to play something like a Roxanne, which he would much rather do.
And this is the premium Pokemon that Nicholas Moffitt has been waiting to sing a special song to. About to use the Star Requiem, take 2 prizes, have 2 prizes remaining. It's so important here in game number 3. Caleb was just about to run away with this game, but Nicholas has Lumineon in this deck for a reason, to find that late game boss's orders.
So this is going to be really interesting. Nick is kind of running a little low on the resources here. His energy is spread very thinly. I think all of his energy that are not the Capture Energies are in play now. Those are the only ones, of course, that he can grab with the Mirage Gates that he plays. So if he wants to play another Mirage Gate, it's going to have to involve an Ordinary Rod at some point. His 1 card in hand is a Switch, which is pretty awkward.
And there is 1 Ordinary Rod in the Lost Zone.
Yeah, so just has 1 more left.
So this is where things get really thin. When you're closing out these games, it's a pretty threadbare amount of resource that you have to actually convert your position. But Lost Impact.
Yeah, it has to be the Lost Impact. It has the 9 cards in the Lost Zone right now. This will put it up to 11 after the Lost Impact. Really debating which energies to Lost Zone here. And Nick is having a tough call of things because if he Lost Zones 2 off the active and Caleb goes for a cross-switcher play and KOs the one on the bench, he's going to be in a really awkward spot. He has to Lost Zone the Capture Energy. That's the easy choice. The other question becomes, does he lose 1 off the active or 1 off of the bench?
Ooh, into the Lost Zone. There we go, and that's Lost Impact. The thing is with the Star Requiem is it's just so good at taking down these big Pokemon, but if you have the damage there to just use it with a backup attacker on the bench, I think this is a pretty smart choice as well.
And this is tough for Caleb because he's put the training court in play. That's going to give Nick a little bit easier access. Oh, maybe if there's not a grass energy in the discard pile. Actually, I think there is a grass energy in the discard pile. I can just barely make it out. So giving Nick pretty easy access to that is going to be tough. I think now Caleb's hope is going to have to be KO this active and just cross your fingers that Nick cannot get the Giratina V-Star remaining in the deck in order to pull off the Lost Impact, but that is a really big ask.
Yeah, there's also the Luminion waiting on the bench, you know, with the scoop up net, can recycle that, get the second boss potentially. There's a lot of options still for Nicholas Moffitt. Caleb put up a very strong effort this game, though, especially in game number 2. It was so dominant. The Shady Dealings and Teleon comes through, but now the Giratinas were able to come swinging. Caleb jumped out, kind of nipped those in the bud before they got a couple of attacks off, and somehow Nicholas, after having to make so many tough choices in the early game, sent a lot of key cards to the Lost Zone, got off 2 Lost Impacts, and still has a pretty sizable amount of threat to close out this game and pick up these last 2 prizes.
So Melanie has to be one of the grabs. It's the really only supporter Caleb can play this turn. He needs to attack with Origin Form Palkia V-Star, and he has to get 2 energies onto it. He can attach 1 for turn, and then, of course, needs the Melanie to get the other one into play. He did grab the second Cross Switcher. One was already waiting in the hand, so I think he is going to eye down this Giratina V on the bench.
Melanie with that Water Energy that was moved to the top of the discard pile. 3 cards off the top. All these Evolution Incenses in the hand.
Plenty of ways to go get that V-Star if he wants it. Could maybe try to work with a, I mean, can't really go with a 1 prize attacker here. You can't power 1 up in a single turn, so this is definitely looking hard. He does have the second Shady Dealings Inteleon.
Yeah, so already just thinning through the deck. The game number 2 was closed out by Caleb, going through a lot of sequencing to put through a big combo and take down Nicholas Moffitt's key attacker. Caleb going to try to make the same thing happen again here. Not only do you need to power up this Origin Form Palkia V, but you also need to find a way to respond to or try to head off and counter what Nicholas is going to respond with. Having the 2 Giratina V in play means that even when this V-Star goes down, you have something else that can threaten with the Requiem.
Yeah, Caleb having to put the training court in play is what makes this really awkward. I think ideally if he didn't have to put down training court, he could just go cross switcher, try to KO the Giratina V on the bench, and then hope that Nick could not find a grass energy this coming turn in order to close out the game. The fact that training court is in play, it just gives Nick such easy access to it that Caleb's options really are limited. If he KOs the active, Nick just needs the V-Star. If he KOs the bench, then Nick has game on board.
Yeah, it was so smart as well to go for the Lost Impact instead of the Requiem. So now even with the big charm being found, the amount of HP just doesn't matter.
Yes, of course.
Nicholas Moffitt just waiting to play that sad song. Here we go. There's the, of course, the V-Star off the Evolution Incense. Tons of them in the hand. This hand is massive chips. So many options available to Caleb.
Oh my gosh, yes. So much going on, so many things he could possibly pull off. It looks like Cross Switcher will be the play this turn. Brings up the Tina V. And if he swings in with this and just takes the knockout, all Nicholas Moffitt has to do is promote the Giratina V-Star, use Caleb's own training court, bring back the grass energy, and close out the game.
With the Requiem. Only 2, and it's only a 2 energy cost for the Requiem. You have to have 3 energies for the Impact.
Right.
Already tons of cards in the Lost Zone. So unfortunately, I think that Caleb might just be backed into a corner here. And you can't not take this knockout because Giratina V just has 2 retreat costs we can see there. Just throw those energies in the discard pile to promote the other regardless.
Throw down the Sobble just in case of a Sableye, but Nick Moffitt can bring back the grass energy with the training court, and Star Requiem takes the KO on Origin Form Palkia V-Star, and Nicholas Moffitt moves on to the top 4.
Very impressive play. We saw how many decisions have to be made in this deck over and over and over again to navigate towards that winning game state, even when it looks like you just barely able to get by in the late game. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel for energies and scoop up nets and switch cards. Nicholas was still able to pull it off.
Congratulations, of course, to Caleb making top 8. It's his first ever day 2 as a Masters Division player. This is his first top 8, Adam, but I'm sure it will not be the last time we see from Caleb Rogerson.
Absolutely. This was a fantastic game, a fantastic set from both players, and to make it to top 8 with, again, the meta being so open-ended, Palkia being a list that so many players have put so much time and energy into, to play it all the way to top 8 like this shows that you are still one of the best, even though you're a newcomer into the division.
I mean, we had 929 players this weekend in the tournament, so being one of the best 8, I mean, that is an accomplishment you should definitely hold your head high about. Congratulations, of course, to Caleb. But Nick now tying his best finish from Salt Lake City.